Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Saturday. Anyway, it was like, oh, it's going to be kind of a slow news day. So then I had a thing pop up actually a couple of days ago about a 2-year-old that was overdosed on or inadvertently high dosed on potassium and ended up having complications. The article can be found on WCJB.com. It's a Gainesville news source. Um, One thing I found actually interesting was some of the news sources. I read actually multiple web pages, multiple news agencies reporting on this. One or two of them actually stated that the child was potentially special needs and everything. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything if they're potentially high dosed on potassium? Like, special needs doesn't need to even be incorporated into the article. I don't know why that was even in there. It was not necessary to include that, especially on a 2-year-old. I mean, you're gonna get very limited anything from a 2-year-old, let alone it does not matter if it's special needs. What the gist of the article is that the individual was or the child was high dosed on potassium, and it wasn't just a little error. It was allegedly 10 times the amount. And I know working from the hospital in an adult focused position that we would give potassium all the time. We'd have to put them on telemetry, etc. If I ordered a dose that was 10 times the amount, one, it would be a pharmacy specific mixture. They would have to actually mix it, or we would end up having to do multiple IV infusions over a course of 12 hours, give or take, depending on what each bag was, just because potassium is terrible on the body. It burns. You have to run it slow. You can get a lot of complications through the veins because of it. They have to be on telemetry. There's monitoring that has to be done. You have to go in and check the IP sites so that you don't get any infiltration, etc. I mean, there's just a lot with potassium. That's an adult. So now here comes pediatric dosing. Again, adult focused care pharmacies would red flag that, and you would get a message, you would get a phone call. It would never leave the pharmacy. Okay. Um, Now here comes pediatrics. Now I've not ever worked pediatrics, but per multiple articles on these various news agencies, the red flags were activated and it was signed off. Now maybe it was an oversight by the pharmacist, definitely an oversight by the ordering provider. Um, but unfortunately, it still falls down to the individual that ended up administering the order. So I know that I have had to go to bat for what I felt was medications that were inappropriately ordered, such as insulins, Humalog, rapid acting insulins, and we're giving 40 something units, 50 something units, or inappropriate orders for where the patient is located. So sometimes you have to advocate that the patient needs to be um, a transfer to a higher acuity unit to have those orders actually initiated, like insulin drips, etc. Um, this, per the news articles, was 10 times the level. Red flagged at the hospital. Dose was still given. And I'm not saying anything against my nurse colleagues, RN colleagues, but if it looked inappropriate, and I hope it's documented, but the problem is it still was given. I hope they documented that they talked to the pharmacist, they talked to the provider, but in my mind, they should have still not given the dose. Um, you can advocate for your patients. You can refuse if you feel that the order that is going to be carried out will harm the patient. A 10 times higher dose level than what is normal in that kind of environment should have red flagged the nurse as well before that medication was given. I if anybody out there tells you that they've not made a mistake in direct patient care, they're lying. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. My wife has made mistakes. You learn from it, you correct and grow. But there are some things where if it's not right, it's not right. And it is better to go down and raise holy hell, and not give that dose than it is to give that dose and carry the weight on your shoulders that what you did harmed the individual that you're caring for and or led to their passing. So I'm actually going to follow this one a little bit. Same thing as the interesting developments on the case here in Columbus with the nurse that was strangled. But this one in Gainesville, I'm interested to see how it plays out, and it may end up getting settled, and we'll never see the light of the day. But I'm interested to see how it's going to be handled. So I actually flagged it and put it to the favorites, and I'm going to check in every once in a while. But again, for us nurses, NPs, PAs, just any provider out there, anybody working in healthcare, if it doesn't look right, it isn't right, and you need to raise holy hell. Just you need to hold the people to task. If you're giving a 6 times the amount of the regular dosing of fentanyl, if you're giving 150 milligrams of Lopressor and the patient came in and they were previously on 25 milligrams twice a day, and now you're giving 150, may want to check on that, especially depending on the unit. I mean, if something doesn't look right, unless it's in a plan of care and you can document it, it's still better to check than it is to give it. Even if you're going to get yelled at, which that's a whole nother thing, it's better to check. It's better to document that you covered your ass. So hopefully there's a documentation, but still it ended up being given, which is where the problem lies, is that even if it is documented, the dose is still given. Anyway, have a good Saturday. Get plenty of football in. Eat lots of good food. Get some beers in. Don't drink and drive. For all you working, have a good shift. Get home to your families. And until next time.